If you're over 60 and you're watching this video, I have some information that could literally save your life. My name is Dr. Michael Harrison, and I've been working with seniors for over 20 years as a cardiovascular specialist. What I'm about to share with you might shock you, but it could be the most important 25 minutes you spend this week. Did you know that what you eat and drink in the first hour after waking up could be quietly increasing your stroke risk by as much as 40%? And here's the really frightening part. Most of the foods I'm talking about are ones that doctors and nutritionists have been telling us are healthy for decades.
Let me start with a story that really opened my eyes to this problem. Last year, I had a patient named Eleanor, a vibrant 72-year-old grandmother who was doing everything right. She walked 3 miles every day, took her medications religiously, and prided herself on eating what she thought was the perfect healthy breakfast. Steel-cut oatmeal with a banana, a large glass of fresh orange juice, and her morning coffee with a splash of cream. Eleanor came to see me because she'd been having dizzy spells every morning around 9:30, about an hour after breakfast. Her family doctor had run every test imaginable, blood work, brain scans, heart monitors. Everything came back normal. That's when her daughter insisted she see a specialist. When I sat down with Eleanor and really listened to her describe these episodes, something clicked. The timing was too consistent to be coincidental. These dizzy spells were happening like clockwork, always about an hour after her morning meal. So I asked her to walk me through her exact morning routine, minute by minute. What we discovered changed everything, not just for Eleanor, but for how I now counsel all my patients over 60 about breakfast. You see, Eleanor was unknowingly creating what I call a perfect storm in her cardiovascular system every single morning. That innocent glass of orange juice, which she'd been drinking for 40 years because it was supposed to be healthy, was sending her blood sugar skyrocketing within minutes. The oatmeal with banana was adding even more sugar to her bloodstream. And all of this was happening at the exact time when her body was least equipped to handle it. Here's something most people don't realize. Your morning hours, specifically between 6 and 10 a.m., are actually the most dangerous time of day for your cardiovascular system. This isn't just my opinion. This is backed by decades of research. Studies consistently show that strokes are 3 times more likely to occur during these morning hours than at any other time of day. Heart attacks follow a similar pattern. Why is this? Well, when you wake up, your body goes through what we call the morning surge. Your blood pressure naturally rises as your body prepares for the day ahead. Your stress hormone, cortisol, spikes to help you wake up. Your heart rate increases. Your blood becomes slightly thicker because you've been dehydrated all night. Now, if you're in your 20s or 30s, your blood vessels are like brand new garden hoses, flexible, elastic, able to handle these pressure changes easily. But as we age, our blood vessels become more like old, stiff pipes. They've lost some of their flexibility. The walls have thickened slightly. They simply can't adapt to sudden pressure changes the way they used to. This is completely normal aging, but it means we need to be smarter about how we treat our cardiovascular system, especially during those vulnerable morning hours. This is where breakfast comes in, and this is where Eleanor was unknowingly making things worse. When you drink fruit juice or eat refined carbohydrates on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, you're essentially throwing gasoline on a fire. Your blood sugar spikes rapidly, which triggers your pancreas to dump insulin into your bloodstream. This creates inflammation in your blood vessels, makes your blood stickier, and puts additional strain on your cardiovascular system right when it's already dealing with that natural morning surge. Let me give you some numbers that might surprise you. A single 8-ounce glass of orange juice contains the same amount of sugar as eating 4 whole oranges, but your body processes it in under 5 minutes instead of the 20 to 30 minutes it would take to eat the actual fruit. When Eleanor switched from orange juice to eating half an orange with a small piece of cheese, her morning dizzy spells disappeared within 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and her blood pressure readings, which she tracked at home, showed a consistent improvement in those critical morning hours. But fruit juice isn't the only culprit, and this is where things get really interesting. Some of the biggest problems come from foods that have been marketed to us as healthy breakfast options. Take granola, for example. Most people think granola is a health food, but many commercial granolas contain more sugar per serving than a candy bar. I had another patient, Robert, a 68-year-old retired teacher, who was starting every day with what he called his healthy breakfast, a large bowl of granola with milk and sliced strawberries. Robert was experiencing what he described as brain fog every morning. He couldn't think clearly until almost noon, and he was starting to worry about dementia. When we changed Robert's routine to start with scrambled eggs and waited 30 minutes before having any carbohydrates, the brain fog disappeared within a week. A week. He told me it was like someone had turned on a light switch in his head. The connection between blood sugar spikes and cognitive function is real, especially as we age. When your blood sugar spikes rapidly, it doesn't just affect your blood vessels, it affects your brain's ability to function optimally. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying that oatmeal or fruit or even orange juice are inherently bad foods. The problem is the timing and the combination. Your body's ability to process sugars and carbohydrates is at its lowest point right when you wake up. This is called the dawn phenomenon, and it affects virtually everyone over 60 to some degree. Your insulin sensitivity naturally decreases as you age, and it's at its worst in the early morning hours. Think about it this way. If you had to choose the worst possible time to challenge your body's ability to handle sugar, first thing in the morning would be it. Yet, that's exactly when most of us are consuming our highest sugar, fastest absorbing foods of the day. It's like asking someone to run a marathon when they're already exhausted. Let me share another story that really drives this point home. I worked with a couple, Margaret and Harold, both in their mid-70s. They'd been married for 50 years and had identical breakfast routines: toast with jam, coffee with cream and sugar, and a glass of apple juice. Harold was fine, but Margaret was having episodes where she felt faint and unsteady every morning. Same breakfast, same timing, but different results. Why? Because men and women process sugars differently as they age, and Margaret had developed what we call metabolic inflexibility. Her body had become less efficient at switching between burning sugar and burning fat for energy. When we modified Margaret's breakfast to start with protein and healthy fats, things like hard-boiled eggs, avocado, or nuts, before having any carbohydrates, her symptoms disappeared. Harold decided to make the same changes, and while he hadn't been having obvious symptoms, he noticed he had more sustained energy throughout the day and wasn't experiencing that mid-morning energy crash he'd grown accustomed to. This brings me to one of the most important concepts I want you to understand: the idea of a glucose buffer. When you eat protein and healthy fats before consuming any carbohydrates, you're essentially creating a buffer that slows down sugar absorption. Think of it like putting a sponge in a glass before pouring water into it. The sponge soaks up the water and releases it slowly, preventing overflow. Protein and fat act like that sponge for sugar in your bloodstream. Some of the best glucose buffer foods are incredibly simple and probably already in your kitchen. A hard-boiled egg, a handful of almonds, a slice of avocado, even a small piece of cheese. You don't need much, just 10 to 15 grams of protein and a little healthy fat. The key is eating these first, then waiting about 15 minutes before having any carbohydrates. But here's something that might surprise you even more: the liquid breakfast trap. About 80% of seniors get their first calories of the day from liquids. Coffee with cream and sugar, fruit juice, smoothies, even protein shakes. The problem with liquid calories is that they bypass many of your body's natural hunger and satiety signals, and they get absorbed much faster than solid food. This means bigger blood sugar spikes, more inflammation, and greater stress on your cardiovascular system. Even those green smoothies that everyone talks about can be problematic if they're your first food of the day. Yes, they contain vegetables, but when you blend fruits and vegetables, you break down the fiber that would normally slow sugar absorption. You end up with a drink that hits your bloodstream almost as fast as fruit juice. Coffee deserves special mention here because I know many of you are coffee drinkers, and I don't want you to think you need to give it up. Coffee itself actually has some cardiovascular benefits. It contains antioxidants that may help protect your blood vessels. The problem isn't the coffee, it's what we add to it. Those flavored coffee creamers are loaded with high fructose corn syrup and artificial ingredients. If you're adding 2 or 3 tablespoons to your coffee, you might be getting as much sugar as you'd find in a soda. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Doctor, I've been eating this way for years, and I feel fine. And you might be right, for now. But here's the thing about stroke risk. It's cumulative. Every morning that you stress your cardiovascular system with rapid blood sugar spikes and inflammation, you're making what I call deposits into your stroke risk account. Most strokes don't happen overnight. They're the result of years of small stresses that gradually weaken blood vessels and increase inflammation. It's like driving your car with the engine running too hot every day. The car might run fine for months or even years, but eventually all that extra stress is going to cause something to break down. The difference is, with your cardiovascular system, you might not get any warning signs before something serious happens. But here's the good news. It's never too late to start making withdrawals from that stroke risk account instead of deposits. I've seen people in their 80s make simple changes to their morning routine and see dramatic improvements in their energy levels, blood pressure, and overall well-being within weeks. The solution isn't complicated, but it does require changing some habits that might be deeply ingrained. The first change is replacing liquid calories with solid food in the first hour after waking up. Instead of fruit juice, eat actual fruit. Instead of a smoothie, have the individual ingredients separately. Your body will process these nutrients much more gradually when they're in their whole food form. The second change is that glucose buffer I mentioned, starting your morning with protein and healthy fats before having any carbohydrates. This doesn't mean you can't have your oatmeal or toast, it just means changing the order. Have your egg or nuts first, wait 15 minutes, then have your carbohydrates. The third change might be the most important, waiting at least 30 minutes after waking up before having your first substantial meal. Give your body time to handle that natural morning blood pressure surge before you add the stress of digestion. During those first 30 minutes, focus on hydration. Have a large glass of water, maybe with a little lemon. Do some gentle stretching. Let your body wake up gradually instead of shocking it with food right away. This 30-minute window is also perfect for some light movement. I'm not talking about vigorous exercise, just some gentle stretching, walking around your house, or basic range of motion exercises.
This helps get your circulation moving and can actually help regulate that morning blood pressure surge. Some of my patients use this time for meditation or deep breathing exercises, which can help activate your body's relaxation response and counteract some of that morning stress. Let me give you a practical example of what this might look like. Wake up at 7 a.m. and drink a large glass of water. Do some gentle stretching or walk around until 7:30. At 7:30, eat a hard-boiled egg and a few almonds. Wait until 7:45, then have your oatmeal with berries and cinnamon. If you're a coffee drinker, have your coffee with the protein and fat, but try to use just a little cream or milk instead of sugar or artificial sweeteners. The results can be remarkable. Eleanor, the patient I mentioned at the beginning, saw her morning dizzy spells disappear within 2 weeks of making these changes. 3 months later, her doctor was so impressed with her blood pressure improvements that he was able to reduce one of her medications. Robert's brain fog cleared up within a week. Margaret's fainting episodes stopped completely. But beyond the dramatic improvements, what I hear most often from patients who make these changes is that they don't feel like they're dieting or depriving themselves. They're eating foods they enjoy, just in a different order and timing. They're still having their morning coffee. They're still enjoying fruit. They're still having oatmeal or toast, just prepared and timed differently. I want to address something important for those of you who are taking medications for blood pressure, diabetes, or heart conditions. Don't make dramatic changes to your diet without talking to your doctor first. These changes I'm suggesting are generally safe for most people, but your medications might need adjustment as your body responds. For example, if you're taking diabetes medications, changing your breakfast routine might affect your blood sugar levels enough that your medication dosages need to be adjusted. This is actually a good problem to have, but it needs to be monitored by your healthcare provider. Also, if you have diabetes, you'll want to monitor your blood sugar more closely as you make these changes, because you might find your levels becoming more stable. Keep a log of your readings and share them with your doctor. If you're on blood pressure medications, you might find that your morning readings start to improve. Again, this is something to discuss with your doctor, as medication adjustments might be needed. Here are some additional tips that can make a big difference. Keep a food diary for a week. Note how you feel 1 to 2 hours after different breakfast choices. Do you feel energetic or tired, alert or foggy? These clues can help you identify which foods work best for your individual body. Everyone is a little different, and what works perfectly for one person might need tweaking for another. Consider having your biggest meal at lunch instead of dinner. This gives your body more time to process nutrients before those vulnerable morning hours. Many cultures traditionally eat their largest meal in the middle of the day, and there's real wisdom in this practice. Your metabolism is naturally higher during daylight hours, and your body is better equipped to handle larger amounts of food earlier in the day. Pay attention to portion sizes. Even healthy foods can cause problems if you eat too much at once. Start with smaller portions and see how your body responds. You can always eat more if you're still hungry, but you can't uneat food that's already causing blood sugar spikes. Stay hydrated throughout the day, not just in the morning. Dehydration can make your blood thicker and put extra strain on your cardiovascular system. Many seniors don't drink enough water because they're concerned about frequent bathroom trips, but proper hydration is crucial for cardiovascular health. And remember that consistency matters more than perfection. If you have a morning where you slip back into old habits, don't give up. Just get back on track the next day. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. Small, sustainable changes are always better than dramatic overhauls
that are hard to maintain.
Many of my patients find it helpful to prepare breakfast components the night before. Hard-boil a batch of eggs on Sunday for the week. Pre-portion nuts into small containers. Cut cheese into small cubes. Having healthy options ready makes it easier to make good choices in the morning when you might not be thinking as clearly.
The science behind these recommendations continues to evolve, but the basic principles remain solid. Your cardiovascular system is most vulnerable in the morning hours. Rapid blood sugar spikes create inflammation and stress on your blood vessels. Protein and healthy fats help buffer these spikes. Timing matters as much as food choices. These aren't just theories. They're practical strategies that have helped thousands of my patients reduce their stroke risk and improve their quality of life. Let me recap the key points, because I want to make sure you remember the most important information. First, your morning hours are your most vulnerable time for stroke risk. That natural blood pressure surge, combined with certain breakfast choices, can create a dangerous situation. Second, the biggest culprits aren't obviously unhealthy foods. They're foods like fruit juice and refined carbs that cause rapid blood sugar spikes when your cardiovascular system is already under stress. Third, the solution is simple: solid foods over liquids, protein and fat before carbs, and waiting 30 minutes after waking before your first substantial meal. These aren't huge changes, but they can make a dramatic difference in your stroke risk, especially if you implement them consistently over time. Remember Eleanor's story, Robert's story, Margaret's story. Within just weeks of making these changes, their symptoms improved significantly. Small changes can have big impacts on your health, and it's never too late to start protecting yourself. Your health is your most valuable asset, and you have more control over it than you might think. The choices you make every morning, choices that might seem insignificant, are actually some of the most important decisions you make for your long-term health and independence. You have the power to reduce your stroke risk with simple, daily habits. Starting tomorrow morning, you can begin protecting your cardiovascular system and potentially adding years of healthy, active life. I challenge you to try these changes for just 2 weeks. Track how you feel. Notice your energy levels, your mental clarity, how stable you feel throughout the morning. I think you'll be surprised by the difference such simple changes can make. Your future self will thank you for taking action today to protect your health and reduce your stroke risk. Thank you for watching, and here's to many more healthy mornings ahead.